So we've got Maya, and I've created this very basic scene, which is just a 3-point lighting setup. I've got a dome light in the scene to kind of give a little bit more color. And yeah, the eye, it is a 20mm focal length. That is correct. And then the combination of the eyes and the distortion of the lens creates a 40... What was it? It wasn't 44. It was like 46 to 48 or something like that millimeter lens. I'm going to remember this to the day I die. The 22 and then 46. Probably already forgotten. Oh no, what does that mean? So we've got this simple scene. 3-point lighting setup. I've got a dome light to give a little bit of color, and just this basic polygon disc. It's just this button right here. Boop. Create a polygon disc, scale it up. Nothing more. So very simple. Now let's say I'm not going to bring in a character just because that's going to be extra stuff to load in the scene, but let's say we want this ground to be a brick wall. Well, it doesn't look very much like a brick wall, does it? It's just a ground plane. I could stand it up, but it's just flat anyway. This doesn't give a nice look to the scene. So the typical way people would do it is to start copying bricks and like duplicating things. And you could use a mesh network for this, which would be fantastic. But you're still going to miss out on a lot of the small details, the little chips in the bricks, the mortar, the detail in the like that texture in there. Sometimes you don't need that. Other times we do, especially when you're dealing with something like grass. So the other way is we can use a texture. So let's do that. Let's do a quick texture here. So I'm going to open up my Hypershade, and I'm just going to do the typical way we would add a texture. We would create something like, let's say a blin. We would come in here, select our color attribute, choose a file, and then browse for our texture. So I've got some bricks right here. So let's see. We will take, I'm going to discuss all of these different things right here in just a second, but I want this one. So that's the color. So we've got that, a brick texture with brick color going in, and let's apply it to our disc right here. And what we get is a brick wall, kind of, not really. It is flat, perfectly shiny, and yes, visually it looks detailed, but doesn't look interesting, does it? It just kind of, it's a texture. If it's far enough away, this will do fine. But what if the character's like right up against that wall? And what if we have like a 3/4 camera, so you see the wall like this? Kind of flat. It destroys the entire illusion. Okay. So, what can we do? Well, I'm just going to keep the old one here just so we can compare. Well, the first thing is you can go to a very specific site. So, this is Texture Haven. It's a free site. All of these are free. Of just high-res texture packs. So, if you're looking for, let's browse here, textures. You're looking for floors. Well, here are tiles and cobblestone, this kind of really rough cobblestone, all sorts of textures. Oh, you want maybe fabric? Maybe you want to give your characters like a jean pattern, or like have a tablecloth that actually has like a tablecloth pattern on it. Ooh, nice. All of it is free and really high res. Like a lot of these textures are 8K textures. So like this denim fabric, if we download all the maps, yeah, we could get this in 8K. So that is a high res texture. This is a website I highly recommend everyone check out if you're interested in adding some texture to your scene and you're looking for really good quality ones. This is also, yeah, all Haven sites are really nice. So for anyone who doesn't know, there's also HDRI Haven. This is where you can get good HDRI lighting for your scene. And then there's also 3D Model Haven, where you can get 3D models for your scene. So if you're looking for some different props, a nice camera, some cabinets, a sofa. Now this one, there's not the most, unfortunately, but still, it's like, if you want a pistol, hey, that's a really good quality looking pistol. I don't know if these are rigged. There's a good ukulele. So they don't have a huge selection, but it's there. But my favorites are Texture Haven and HDRI Haven, because the HDRI gives you all the cool lighting you need for your scene, and this gives you all the cool textures you need for your scene. And it's all free. I highly recommend supporting them though, if you have the chance, or if you're able to. It's just really good. Do I have a YouTube channel? I wish I had the time to put one together. I would love to make like just short little videos, so you don't have to watch like a 3-hour stream every time you want to get some notes on something. I just don't have the time, unfortunately. I would right now I've just got too many projects going on to add another one. I would melt down probably. But you can go here and just download the textures you want. So this is where I actually got this brick wall texture. Now, when you download the textures, it's not just one texture that comes in. So here is all of the textures. We've got the color, and then we've got an AO, a disp, NOR, rough AO, a diff. What's this? What are all these things? Well, these are all different textures that you can use and create a more complex texture map and get more detail in your scene. These are going to be huge in capturing all the small, awesome stuff. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, how to incorporate all of these into your scene. Roger, I'll have to talk to you about that at some point, because I definitely do want to make a YouTube channel, because I want to have some place that people don't have to sit for 3 hours to watch a demo. And I know I ramble a lot, so if I could just record something super quick, 10 minutes, and then you can watch it and you've got it. It would be so nice. So we've got this. This is just the the default blend shader. That's the other thing about YouTube. I could cut all the parts that I stammer. So we've got the default blend shader. That's nice, not super interesting. Let's go a little deeper. So to properly use these attributes, what I would recommend is not using a Maya Blinn or Lambert, the default textures. I would like to use a Arnold texture. So I'm going to go into the Arnold section here, go into shader, and I'm going to create an AI standard surface right here. So an AI standard surface is just a much more complex material that gives you a lot of different features that we can like plug in. So let's kind of start with the start. What do we want? First we should have the texture of the bricks in there. If I apply this right now, it's just gray. And texture found. Oh, thank you so much. That would be awesome. I'll have to talk to you guys about that. So let's say we've got this. We need the color. So for an AI standard surface, the way you get the color, and let me actually just get rid of the material viewer, don't need that, is we need to add the base color in here. So right there, color. This is also called the diffuse. So when you are applying a color to a texture, you are actually applying the diffuse channel to it. So in this case, if we look at our textures, well, here it is, diff. It's the church bricks diffuse. So if I take that, I'm going to go to my color here and bring in a file, and let's browse for the diffuse channel right there. diffuse is the color. And once it loads in, voila, there we go. Now you'll notice it's a little dark. That's because unlike the Blinn, you kind of need lighting for the Arnold textures to really shine correctly. So I'm going to turn on the lights here. And we get this super shiny brick floor. It's very shiny. So, yay, we've got that. Now, we've got the color. What else do we have? Well, if we look through here, let's pick the next one that's going to be most useful. The roughness. So what the roughness does is it changes this super shininess. A brick wall is not shiny everywhere. Now, technically bricks aren't really shiny in the first place, but there are going to be some areas that are shinier than others. Every object has a little bit of a shine to it. So, I'm going to go into my AI standard surface here, and let's go into our specular. This is what controls that shine. And what I want is to find the roughness value. This controls how shiny the object is, whether it's perfectly shiny or more diffused. Okay, so let's go in here, get a file, browse, and choose our roughness right there. So just the rough. Let's open that up. Now, let's take our specular weight, and now you'll see the weight is all the way up. But look at the shine now. See how it's not just a perfect shine? We're starting to get some areas that don't shine while others do. It's very hard to see at certain angles. And Kobe, thank you so much for the subscription. Oh man, Jane. Oh wait. No, wait. Oh yeah, thank you so much for the sleep deprived animator. Thank you so much for the gift. Oh geez, thank you so much. I had a bunch of notifications came up, but I didn't know what to which one to look at. And Kobe, thank you so much for the subscription. Welcome. Oh jeez. Sleep deprived animator. Jeez. Thank you. Jeez, thank you so much. Whoa. Was that 5? Gotta do the dance. I'm forgetting the dance. My blind, it blanked out. Thank you so much. And Lucas, Asaf, the beginner, Saul, just Saul, and General Neums, that's an awesome username. Thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate that. Or it's the subs. Welcome to the sub team. Thank you. That's awesome. Geez, sleep deprived animator and a very nice British guy. I'm sorry, I had 3 hours of sleep. I'm not reading things correctly. Thank you guys so much. That's awesome. The dance. That's so cool of you guys. Man, thank you so much. I think there's like 2 more. Wait, yeah, there you go. I knew there was another one. Yeah, free cardio. Yeah, I'm definitely getting my workout today. I thought I was going to take a day off today. Does Maya use Vulkan for the shader API? That I'm not sure. They use Arnold for the main render. I don't know if they use any Vulkan in there, or if Vulkan is implemented. Gotta keep dancing. So I'll keep dancing here and keep going. Yeah, dance all day. I'm going to be just sitting here. Oh yeah, it's open. Yeah, they do use OpenGL. You can also change it to DirectX if you want. Oh, it's my pleasure, Sleep Deprived. I love doing this stuff. As long as it helps someone, then I'm happy. Oh no, a very nice British guy. You lost your #1 spot. No. So we've got the roughness in here, and the roughness is really nice because it gets that kind of super polished floor feeling out of there. So for example, let's kind of take that roughness back. This feeling where it's just perfectly smooth. We don't really want that because most objects are not perfectly smooth. Even something like this is my phone case, you can see it's pretty smooth, but there's like smudges, and it's not just the one uniform clean surface. That's not interesting. Now, how can we push this even more? What other materials do we have? Well, we've applied the diffuse, we've applied the roughness. Well, we've got AO and AO. So we've got just the default AO and the roughness AO. What's AO? AO is ambient occlusion. So this is something that we've seen in the streams quite often. So let me actually go into my main viewport here, and let's say I create a cube, and I'm going to turn on ambient occlusion in the viewport right here. Oop, right there. What this does is, as two objects get closer together, it creates this shadow effect right there. Ambient occlusion is a type of shadow that happens when objects get close together. So if you kind of cup your hand a little bit and look at kind of the seams of the hand, or the wrinkles of the hand, you'll notice that the shadows are just a little darker. That's ambient occlusion when things get close. Well, with high quality textures, when they render them out or create them, there's an ambient occlusion pass, which means it adds shadow to the scene. Okay, how do we use that? Well, a shadow is just a darkening of the default color. That's really all it is. So I've got my face here. If I put my hand there, it's just darker in that section. So they don't go into a specific area, but they get added to the diffuse and the roughness. So let's do that. I'm going to just bring in some new file nodes. I'm just going to hit tab in the node editor here, and I'll create file, and let's do a file texture. So this is going to be my AO, my ambient occlusion for the diffuse, the base color. So let's bring that in, browse, and we'll look for our AO, and you'll see it's just black and white, it's shadow pass. Okay. Now let me move the viewport so we can see this clearly. Okay. Now we need to mix these together, and there's a few different ways you can do this. The simplest way when you're using Arnold stuff is to use an AI mixer, AI multiply. So I'm going to hit tab, and I'm just going to type AI multiply right there. You can also just go through the utilities on the left side here, but there's a lot. So AI multiply right there. And I'm just going to take my out color from the diffuse, out color from the AO, the ambient occlusion, and link those together in there. And then apply that new result to our base color here. So whoop, drag that in. There we go. Now, let it calculate there. So, does it look any different here? Well, it looks darker, definitely. But what we're seeing now is the shadows in the material. So you can see, like, right in here, let me just switch the color back to the base. You can see how it's just ever so slightly adding some extra detail in there. Now, right away, it's not going to be a huge difference. It's just going to look darker for the most part. But this is going to come in handy later on as we add other features. So for now, we can just kind of leave it like this. If you do find it's too dark, you can start adjusting like its exposure. And let's kind of let my catch up here. You can start adjusting these values to offset that shadow versus light. And this is right within the file node there. For now, I'm just going to leave it at default just to kind of keep the values at what they should be. Now, let's do the same thing for this one. So I'm going to take my AI multiply. I'm just going to duplicate it. And then let's bring in a new file, texture. And this is going to be our roughness AO. So roughness AO right here. Open that. There we go. And once again, out color goes in there. Out, oops, make sure I go into input 1. It doesn't really matter, but we'll just kind of keep it the same. So there we go. So the roughness goes in with the AO roughness. And then the out color, I'm just going to take one of the channels and put that into the specular roughness. Like so. Now, let that load. So basically this is just going to add that extra little shadow detail into the specular, because if an area is in shadow, it's not going to be shiny. The the light is being blocked from there. So this makes it so that the shadows match the shininess, or the shininess matches where the shadows fall on the scene. It just gets that extra little texture. And now you can see, like when we look at that brick floor, why only the R? So the specular roughness is a 0 to 1 channel. It's an on-off switch. In Maya, you have alpha channels, which are 0 to 1, but textures don't really have an alpha channel. So an alpha is transparency. What they do have is color, which is RGB. And in Maya, each channel, R, G, and B, are each a 0 to 1. But the combination of them is 3 different attributes. So I can't just take the full color and put it into specular roughness, because that's taking 3 different values and trying to cram it into a 0 to 1 space. So instead, because these are all black and white anyway, these textures, I can just take an R or the red, green, or blue, any of them, and put it into the specular roughness, and it does the same thing. So it's a way of getting around that issue. You're just taking one of the 0 to 1 values. I hope that makes sense. It's just kind of the math of it all. So we've got that. And now we've got this nice shiny floor, brick floor. And you can see how that suddenly looks a little bit more interesting than what we had before, especially when we compare it to our old one. Let's actually take that shine down on this one. So this is what we had before. It's definitely brighter. We can always brighten up the other one. But look at how kind of just flat and boring that is versus this, that we start getting this nice detail in there. Okay. Now the other thing that'll help is if I actually shine some or brighten my lights a little bit. I think that might be a little too dark. There we go. That's going to add some color. That helps. Now we're getting there. So this is one big thing to think about when you're working with Arnold materials is the light values are going to be, they're going to need to be much more extreme to properly light it. So there we go. So we've got that. Nice. It feels like harder bricks with the mortar in between. The slightly shinier mortar. Perfect. Okay. Well, what else do we have? Well, we've used AO, diffuse, roughness, and roughness. Okay. Well, now let's go with the NOR map. So the NOR map is the normal map. A normal map is a map that controls it's a really complex map. Let's actually look at it full screen here. You can see it's not black and white. It's this really complex series of colors. And basically what it is a map that calculates the normals or the angle of the edges on a surface. So it will, based on the color, be able to tell whether a face is straight towards camera, angled slightly away, and what value, what direction. It is a really complex map and it's really cool. So how do we use that? Well, let's first just bring it in. And Blaze, hello, how's it going? So this is going to be our normal map. Let's kind of lower it down here. Boop. And browse and normal. Okay. So the way you connect a normal map in a proper render, so if I was to render this out, is I can't just connect this straight into my material. I need to add a calculation node in between. The typical node for that is an AI normal node. And I can spell normal. There we go. Normal map. So I would take my out color, put that into the input, out value, into the normal camera, like that. Now, that would make it so that when I render, I get some extra detail in here. Yay! In this case, it's not going to do anything, because an AI normal map is typically just going to affect the final render, not something in the viewport. Let's see. there's this confusion I have when to use bump map versus normal map. Okay, so that's basically it's whether you want to see it in the viewport or whether you want to see it in the render. Both of them can be used as a bump map, which is what I'm going to be doing here. So instead of using this as a normal camera or a normal map, which again is render based, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 2D bump node. So 2D bump. And usually I use a default 2D bump or a bump 2D. You can also use an AI bump 2D, but let's actually stick with a default one just because I find I get more luck with that. Okay, so we've got a bump 2D node. And what we're going to do is take our normal map, just tie in one of the values into the bump value, and then go into our AI standard surface, and under the geometry here, we want to tie in our bump mapping, which is the normal camera. So boop, there we go. You'll see it changes there. And with this, suddenly we get detail. Now it's going to be way too much. This is all of a sudden we just kind of ruined it. So go to your 2D bump node, or bump 2D I should say, and just adjust the depth. So in this case, let's go 0.1. You don't really need that much. And now we're starting to get some interesting detail. So maybe 0.05. You really don't need that much. Maybe even 0.02. Maybe that's a little too low. There we go. 0.03. So just enough that now you can start seeing that kind of graininess come out a little bit. If I turn this off, you can see the difference. It's not much, but it's enough to just add some visual detail. So that's pretty much the bump node. It just adds that extra little touch. The problem with a bump node is that it doesn't actually add detail. It's an illusion. So let's actually put this really high. So let's go 5. Look at that. It's so bumpy. But if I look at the object, it's perfectly flat. There is no change here. It is just a flat default object, which means that as soon as I'd move the camera, that illusion is lost. It doesn't feel real anymore. So a bump is nice if your camera doesn't move and you line it up, but it's just kind of a nice way to add some extra detail in the viewport. And again, if you're rendering, I would highly recommend using a normal map instead. It's just more powerful in that sense. It uses all 3 channels and just kind of is more robust. So we've got this. Now, out of curiosity, before I move on, I just want to see the AI bump 2D. I want to see what difference it has. So let's see if that makes any difference here. I think it's probably, yeah, it doesn't show up in the viewport. That's what I thought. So we'll just use the regular bump 2D because that shows up in the viewport there. Okay, so got this. Yay! Well, we've got one more map left, and this is my favorite one. The disp map. The disp map is a displacement map. And a displacement map is going to be your best friend because it adds so much to what you can do. And this is where the magic comes alive. The problem is that they are tricky to use if you don't know how. There's very specific ways that you have to set them up. And a lot of people kind of put it the wrong way and then figure that, oh, it doesn't work. So how do we create a displacement map? Well, let's bring in the displacement map first. So File, Texture, bring in our displacement map. Boop. There we go. There's the displacement. It's in the scene. Well, where do we connect it? The displacement does not get connected into the main shader. It's not part of the main texture of the object. Instead, it is adjusting the surface of the object. So we actually calculate it to the standard surface node, not the material node here. This is the actual like surface calculation right here. So this is where the texture drives into, and also where the displacement will go right there. Now we can't just put this straight in. Just like with a bump map, we need an extra little node here. So I'm just going to hit tab and go displacement. And I need a displacement shader right here. Now it comes in with its own little shader network here. I don't need that because we're going to be using the AI standard one. So let's connect that displacement into the displacement shader right here. And I can just get rid of that. Boop. And now let's bring in our out color and bring that into displacement, or more specifically, one of the red channels. So, whip, right there. So we've got our displacement map that goes into our displacement shader, which goes into the displacement shader attribute on the surface. Yay. Nothing happened. What are we doing? Well, displacement maps are very heavy. They take a lot of processing to work. And by default, it's just not turned on. So this is where a lot of people will go, and yeah, oh, nothing worked. Dang it. Okay, delete it all. There's just an extra step. So if I come in here, let's get our lighting into our scene. There we go. I'm just going to select the surface itself. And what I need to do is I need to go into the smooth mesh attributes. Boop, right here. And I'm going to hit smooth mesh. This is the same thing as hitting 3 on your keyboard to smooth out the object. So it gets this nice softer look. And once you do that, well, look at that. Displacement preview. Check. Now it'll load. And it's going to be pretty bad at the beginning here. But look at that. Suddenly, we have depth. Suddenly, this brick wall is not a flat surface anymore. It's still the same simple piece of geometry. There's no more detail that we've modeled into it. But look at all the visual detail we get. A displacement map actually displaces the surface, and it displaces it visually. Now you can increase the subdivisions here. Let's see if we can go even higher. Yeah, let's do that. See if we can get a little bit more detail. Nah, not doing anything. So with that, we've got this text, or this bump here, or I should say displacement, but it's too high. So let's go back in here, and we're just going to take our displacement shader and turn down the height. So maybe let's go 0.2, no, too low. 0.5, pretty good, maybe 0.4. There we go. So now we've got a brick wall that actually has depth. If we move our camera around, you see all that little detail. We get the tiny little spots and divots using the normal map to get all the tiny little bumps in here. Now, if you zoom really close, it's definitely not going to look great. But from a distance, you get that. And it works. And suddenly, we get this object that just looks a little bit more interesting. Now, let's actually adjust the material just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here, and it's just a little shiny for a brick wall. I'm going to go to my AI standard surface and take my specular and just tone down the weight of it. This is how shiny it is. So now it's still going to be somewhat shiny. You see a little bit of that shine across the surface, but it's not going to be like it's being waxed. So there we go. And now we've got a nice brick wall. Now you can go with all sorts of materials like this. So let's take this here. I'm going to duplicate it. And let's make another material here. And actually, the way I'm going to do this, I'm just going to layer them one on top of each other. Okay. So I'm going to do this again very quickly, but we're going to use a different material this time. So let's clear out our graph. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to go through the Q&A or the chat because I know I missed some questions. So let's see. I always forget where the clear button is. Clear graph. There we go. So, let's see. And hey, Sir Wade, hey, welcome. Lucas, you summoned him. How's it going, Sir Wade? I haven't talked to you in a while. I need to chat with you in a bit. But hello. You have been summoned. So let me catch up with the chat and then we'll go here. So Bumpy is black and white. Yes. Does Pixar help artists from other countries to get to USA? Sometimes. It really just does. It depends on who they're hiring and if they're able to get visas. Currently, not too much. Visas are not really being handed out too much with the state of the world, but yeah, they will do that. Okay. Do catch up. I've seen height maps in some programs as bump or normal. What is a height map? Height map and bump maps are similar. There's just different terminology. Height maps tend to be a little bit more like displacement maps. I just watched Into the Unknown. The main focus of the documentary was on how the story was made, storyboarding, and songs. Nice, that's cool. They barely show animators. No, not cool. Although at least they're covering the storyboarding, at least that. And let's see. Boop. There we go. Okay. So let's do that again, but I'm going to do it just a little bit more quickly. Me do something quickly, as if. Super slow. So let's create a new AI surface shader. And just to differentiate it, we'll call this rocks. Okay, so let's apply that to our surface. Suddenly it's going to refresh and take its time. And it's just going to be the default gray once it comes in. Oh, it's really, there we go. So it's just this kind of default whitish gray material. Yay. So let's bring everything back in. This time I'm going to be using a rocky ground texture. So let's say we want our characters to walk on a rocky surface. Okay, so start again. We take a look at all our textures. Now let me actually sort this here. Sort by type. Because all of these are just texture files. They're not needed. These are like TX files for Maya. What we need is these ones right here. So once again, we have our roughness AO, our diffuse, and our ambient occlusion, normal, and displacement. So let's put all of those in. First, let's do the color of this. So I'm going to bring in a file, browse, and this is going to be, where's my rocks? There we go. This is going to be the diffuse right here, diff. That's the main color. Okay. Now, if I just bring that into base color, it'll take a little bit of time to load here. Boy, it's taking a little bit of time. So there we go. Now this is just that first load up. Once you get it going, it moves pretty quick. So we've got that. Once again, like, ooh, what a nice pretty ground texture. It's got lots of rocks and whatnot. but you look at it and it's flat. It's not interesting. It doesn't make this feel like it's the outdoors. Okay, so let's add in our multiply nodes right away. I know I'm going to need 2, so I need the AI multiply. Let's take that, duplicate that there. So out color goes into the multiply, and then we'll just tie us right in here. So with this, the next thing we need is the, we'll just kind of work our way down. We need to have the ambient occlusion for the displacement node. That way we get that shadow detail in there. Let's see. What about companies in Canada? Do they try to get persons from outside? Yes, they. Certain companies, usually it's larger companies, will get visas for people or help you get a visa. Not all the time though. And in general, most companies will favor people from their own country. It's just easier. But it is not like it happens. So give it a try. So this is the AO, the ambient occlusion. This is going to go into the input 2 of the AI multiply. And what that's going to do is just add that little extra shadow detail in the texture. Let's see. Should I be retiming a blockout using flat tangents? It really depends on what you prefer. Some people prefer flat tangents. I personally prefer splines or auto tangents. That's just my preference. I find it's less work. It would be great if you could avoid all of the clicks. If you mean like just kind of always clicking through. The easiest way is just kind of make as many nodes as you need right away. So file texture, and just don't connect them right away. It'll speed things up. So file texture. So this is going to be my roughness, for example. So let's, before I even type the textures in, let's bring them in like so, and then browse for the roughness. So there's the roughness color, or the value of it. And then let's bring in our roughness AO. So roughness AO right here. Okay. Now this will go into our specular roughness. So we see how the ground is super shiny right there. Well, now I just need to take one of my values here. I usually take the R and put it into specular roughness. Boop. Now it'll load, and Savala, hello! And John, hello! Let's see. Do you take a nap or something? I took a 3-hour nap, so a little bit. Let's see. Is there generally a time of the year when the companies are searching for new artists? It really depends. It depends on when they're starting their projects, or if they're in crunch mode. So there's no like, oh, in January, that's your best time. Just keep applying. And hopefully you kind of hit one of those times. But we added the specular, and now you can see, ooh, that looks fancy. Suddenly certain rocks are much shinier than others. So we get that nice feeling right through there. Now it's a little too shiny for rocks, so let's tone this down, maybe like 0.4. Maybe that's even still too much. We'll go 0.2, something like that. And yes, I should take a sip of water. So we've got that. Ooh, it's getting there. Now let's go with the bump. So we need 2 nodes here. We need a file, texture, and then we need our 2D bump node, or bump 2D, I should say. Bump 2D. Boop. So let's take our bump value and take our color, put in there, and turn that into our normal camera. Now, what this is going to do is it's just going to look horrible, because it's just going to be way too much strength in that bump. So give it just 1 second. It's the connecting parts in this that slow things down. I think if I was to turn off textures in the viewport, it would probably speed things up a little. So it would actually help if I browsed for the texture. So actually browse for the texture, normal map. There we go. Bring that in. Now it's gonna look horrible. I was just tying in a blank file. There we go. So put this really low, like 0.03 maybe. Basically, this is just going to help give that extra little detail. So you can see how part of the rock is a little smoother, part of it's a little rougher. That's all it's doing. It's helping to accentuate that detail. Okay. So we've got that. We've got one more to tie in here, and this is the magic one. So tab, let's bring in another file right here, and tab, and we want our displacement shader. The displacement shader ties into the displacement shader of the surface. And then we can actually delete the one that comes with it. Don't need it. Once it loads. Getting there. It doesn't help that I'm also streaming, which slows things down. So we've got that. Now let's actually browse for our texture first this time. So find the displacement, disp, right here. And we're going to take our out R. Again, you could take G or B. I like R. And suddenly, ground. We went from boring flat texture to rocky terrain. And in this case, we could call this like a valley, mountains. It's detailed. Now, this is a little too high for this, especially considering these are supposed to be little tiny pebbles. So let's tone this down. So maybe 0.3. Let's go somewhere around there. Yeah, something like that feels pretty good. So suddenly, that flat texture turns into nice detailed terrain. And we just get this nice visual look to the scene. Now, keep in mind, the reason this worked was because I went in, I smoothed the mesh, and then I turned on displacement preview. If that isn't on, nothing's going to happen. So if you apply it and you're not seeing anything, select the surface, go into displacement preview right here once you've smoothed it. Boop. There we go. Now you'll notice it does go up a little bit, so once you do that, you'll have to kind of nudge it down slightly to line it up. But now you've got ground that your character can walk on. And that's pretty much it. And we can do this with all sorts of materials. So now we've got this nice brick wall that a character can lean up against, and it's got this nice detail. Personally, I like the rocks. Anytime there's rocks, it just kind of looks cool because it's more of a chaotic surface. But you can use this for even subtle materials. So I'm going to do one more here, just so we can kind of see the differences between all of them. So let's duplicate this again, move that up, and once again, let's make an AI standard surface. First, clear the graph. And if anyone has questions on this, definitely let me know. I hope it's making sense. So let's go AI standard surface. And I should mention for anyone who jumped in, where you can get your textures is here, Texture Haven. Let me post the link. It is a resource of free textures, totally free. You don't have to pay a thing, of high quality textures that they're made for rendering, but we can use them in the viewport as well. So you can see all sorts of things. If you want cobblestone, if you want just dry ground with dirt, if you want grass and mud and leaves, get it. If you want to add like a very detailed roof with like ceramic tiles, all you need is a polygon plane with a displacement map. Done. You've got this beautiful wavy roof with no modeling needed. This is one of my favorite little tricks for quickly getting detail in a scene. So let's do one more. This is going to be a little bit more of a subtle one. So let's go in here and open up my folder. So whenever I open up the folder, the first thing I do is I'll just look here and go, okay, what do we have? Okay, we've got the diffuse, displacement, the ambient occlusion, the normal map, the roughness, ambient occlusion. Perfect. I know where I need to connect them now. Oh, just a side question if you have time. I was modeling a sofa for a student job test, and when I finished the last action mirror, my sofa model got very weird, and it did this for all my backups. In the end, I needed to remake it. That's hard to say. How was it just the did it turn black? So when you mirrored it, did it just go pure black and didn't work anymore, or did it just like stop working? Points got removed and moved. Interesting. That's interesting. And it did it for all the backups. You didn't have anything referenced in the scene, did you? Or was everything working in the scene itself? No references? That is tricky. I don't know. It shouldn't have screwed up, and it should definitely not have screwed up the shouldn't have screwed up the backups, especially when everything's imported. My stream isn't categorized? Oh no, isn't it? I think it should be under creative. I don't know. But yeah, that unfortunately I'm not sure. Without looking at the file itself, it's hard to say what it could be. Blender's on hold while I work on the studio tour video. Ooh, nice! That's awesome! Man, I'm so behind on your streams. I need to jump back in. Let's see. But yeah, if you still have the file, you could post it on the Discord and I can take a look at it if I have time. It needs to be art. I could change that. I never know which one is better, art or creative. Because technically, I guess it is art. There we go. Aha, we're now in art mode. So, let's see. I go art? Okay. I should just keep it on art. We are artists. So, this is going to be my main displacement section. I can just duplicate this now. And actually, no, I'm not going to duplicate it. The problem with duplicating, for anyone who's curious, is you'll notice it doesn't create all the connections properly. Now, you can actually duplicate with the connections. If you go to Edit, Duplicate with connections to network, that will create that extra level of detail that brings everything together. I just like creating things myself, just because it kind of lets me know what I'm doing the whole way. But let's actually simplify that. So we've got this. Boop. So this is going to be our roughness. So let's actually, I can start tying everything in right away. Just do it a different way. So this is going to be our base color. It goes into base color. Our roughness is going to go into specular roughness. I haven't applied it yet, so it's going to be very quick to connect everything here. Let's create a new file. This is going to be our normal map. So let's do a bump 2D. Now R into there, normal camera into there. And let's actually tone this down. So it's going to probably be 0.03 right away. Okay. And then we need one more file. Our displacement. Right there. Like so. So now we've basically got the whole thing graphed out. Done. All I need to do is bring in our textures. So let's browse. So this is our displacement. Let's find our displacement right here. Boop. Now we need our displacement AO, the ambient occlusion. Lucky to know it would be a rare thing. I also remade it, so it's okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's definitely sounds like just a rare kind of random glitch. especially that it affected all the other ones. That just seems very odd. Killed the art creative category in general. Oh, that's a shame. Like it goes through the same pattern. Am I right? Oh, which pattern is that? I think I might have missed something. Oh, the same pattern for applying all of these? Yeah, pretty much. I just kind of work through from top to bottom. So we've got those two in place. Let's go into our roughness. So rough, diffuse. And then we've got our rough AO. So rough AO. Find our normal map. Normal. Let's take our displacement. I should also lower the displacement value. So let's say 0.3 just for now. And then displacement. Okay, so done. We've created the whole network. But what does it look like? And actually, I just realized I just brought in all the wrong ones. I just brought in all our rocks. I wanted this one. So let me quickly add those back in. So diffuse. Okay. Diffuse. AO. Oop. This is roughness. Always double check which folder you're in. Okay, this is going to be a bump. So it's a normal map, I should say. And then we've got our displacement, which is my favorite. Displacement. There we go. Let's apply this to that top surface and see what material we get. Ooh, I haven't seen the trailer for Unknown 9. I'll take a look at that. So it's going to refresh here. And let's see what we get. Let it load. It always takes a little bit. Okay. So, doesn't look like much here. Still loading. There we go. Cracked asphalt. Done. So it doesn't have to be something that's like really bumpy to be interesting. It could just be something like this. Now, I could have a character walking through my scene on this nice, interesting, detailed texture on the ground, or detailed ground, without having to model all of this, without having to go through the pain of trying to add all of these cracks in the ground and whatnot. This is a great way to really get quick detail in your scene without having to fight everything. So let me actually come in here. I'm just going to adjust a little bit. Right now it looks like wet pavement, which I'm not opposed to. I might turn down the specular just a little bit. And then, let's see. Let's take our displacement, maybe tone that down a little bit. 0.2. And the same with our bump, maybe 0.02. Just kind of keep it a little bit more subtle. There we go. But when you see the light shining on it, you really get that feeling of depth to it. It's not just a flat surface. Now, if I wanted to, I could really make it bumpy where it's like that. So, really deep cracks. You honestly don't need that a lot of the time. Just a little bit of displacement can really help. Now, actually, let's take a look at my RAM. See what's happening with it. Yeah, so my RAM hasn't been impacted by this so far. Even with these 3 networks, it really hasn't made a difference. Now, if you go all out and you texture your whole scene and everything has this network, yeah, that's definitely gonna start impacting things. But yeah, that's pretty much the demo. It's really just using kind of advanced textures to get a little bit more detail into your materials without having to go into modeling, without having to go into any kind of complex setup. And you can really see the difference when we compare it to kind of the base. So let's say I take these rocks, and let's do one more where we do it the old-fashioned way. A Lambert material, and we're just going to take the rock texture and apply it on there. So let it load. Let's see, my question is a bit off topic, but should we animators look into sketchnoting? Looks fun, but not sure if that's a good, quicker way to take notes for critiques and dailies. It's really up to you. Whatever you feel you're faster. Some people prefer typing on their phone. Some people prefer drawing or doing little thumbnails. Some people prefer just writing notes. Personally, I recommend writing the notes down for dailies or when you're getting critiques, because it just kind of creates a better connection, like mentally. If you find that you're too slow and you prefer to type, do that. Whatever works best for you. There's no universal solution. So you want to do the one that feels most comfortable to you. So I want to take my Lambert here and my rocks, and let's graph that out. And I'm just going to take my diffuse and tie it right into the Lambert. Whoop. Color. And did I not do it? Nope. Nope. There we go. So let that load. But yeah, I know some people that exclusively when they're taking dailies, they just, or like at a studio, they're just going to doodle the notes with little, like, just like one word descriptions. Other people, it's just they write paragraphs and paragraphs of notes. So let's actually turn off the lights here, just so we can kind of get an easy comparison. And then we're just going to look at our material before and after, once Maya loads. And I know there were a few other questions that I missed. Definitely feel free to post them again. And I think since the demo is kind of done here, we can start going into some reviews, because I know a few people asked for that earlier. So if you have things you'd like me to take a look at, definitely feel free to post the link, and I can take a quick look. This is going to be a shorter stream today, just because I haven't slept that much in the last 24 hours, and I've got a whole bunch of work that I need to get done before the end of the day. So I want to make sure I get enough time that I can actually sleep. And did I just stall Maya? I was hitting a bunch of keys accidentally. There we go. That happy moment when you start typing something and then you realize you're still in the Maya window. So if we just turn off our lighting here and kind of compare the ground texture that we've got, you can see the difference that just having that displacement makes. It's not huge, but it goes from just this kind of flat meh texture to something just a little bit more interesting. Something that looks like it could fit in a scene and add life to it. So that's really the goal of this. And then you add lighting and it really stands out. Because this just, it's a flat surface that has no visual interest to it. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that was interesting. I know it was kind of a quick demo from what I usually do quick. It's still an hour. But yeah, it's definitely something I use quite often, especially with ground textures or something like this. Now the key is that you have to get a good texture pack for it, so you're kind of limited to what you can find. But Texture Haven is a great place to get these kind of textures.